question on another theme, if I may. Robert Evans, who is a teacher, please. Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Sir Robin. Lord Denning said earlier this week that it is more important that we retain public confidence in the legal and judiciary system than it is that innocent people remain in prison. How did the panel react?
Michael Portillo.
Well, I think you retain confidence in the legal system by ensuring that if somebody has been wrongly convicted, there is the opportunity for their protests to be heard outside, to be considered perhaps by the MP, to be taken up with the Home Secretary, for the Home Secretary to be able to review the case, and if there has been a miscarriage of justice, for the Home Secretary to be able to refer it back. This is what happened in the Birmingham bombing trial. A verdict was reached in 1974. Protests, or following the incident in 1974, protests were then lodged with the Home Secretary. The Home Secretary concluded that it should be looked at again, and it was looked at again by a court of law, but actually the verdict stood.
Lord Denning seemed to be saying in that statement, he seemed to be saying on television and elsewhere, that people shouldn't go around like the media and raking up cases of injustice and finding out who said what and alleging that somebody else did it and so on, because this would undermine the system of justice.
No, I happen not to agree with that, if that is a correct report of what he said. I happen to believe that it is only if you believe that if an innocent man has gone to jail, that he has the opportunity to be heard again, that you will maintain confidence.
Russell Johnston.
I entirely agree with that. In fact, I don't at all see why there should be a contrast between these two statements. Why the Lord Denning sought to contrast one with the other. I think that perhaps he may I don't know, he may be thinking of the government's intention to introduce permanently, insofar as you can introduce anything permanently in this country, the special regulations in regard to Northern Ireland.
No, he wasn't thinking of that.
Extraordinary intention.
No, he was talking about the general question of
he was talking about
investigation of miscarriages of justice. Charlie Goodwin.
I was appalled when I was told this quotation. I couldn't believe it. It seems to me that if we've got a legal system which is worth having, then it must be strong enough, it must be robust enough, it must be able to withstand constructive or indeed even destructive criticism. Otherwise, you know, maybe we need a different legal system.
Michael Beecher.
I mean, I think it's an appalling Denningism, and indeed a totally false antithesis. I mean, to say it is more important to retain confidence in the judiciary than that innocent people remain in prison, surely one has confidence in the judiciary precisely because innocent people do not stay in prison, precisely that there is a retrial and that justice is done. And I must say, I don't know whether I'm allowed to say on this programme, I have the deepest scepticism about the appeal court decision over the 6 Birmingham pub bombers.
Well, they're going to submit it for appeal to the House of Lords, the Supreme Court, and that may hand down its ruling in due course. Robert Evans, what do you say?
Well, I certainly agree with Michael Meacher on that last point there. I think it's appalling when Lord Denning suggests that any people who query why they're in prison should have the pieces of paper or the letters that they've written thrown straight into the bin, which was what he said. But what I think really comes through from it bright and clear is that it's about time that the press and the media stop asking Lord Denning for his opinion and that he stopped giving his opinion.
Well, that's a restriction of freedom of speech, which I think
long overdue.
Which would not be everybody's.
Yes,
yes.
What I'd like to say is I expect the Germans in the Nazi Germany had confidence in the judiciary.
Ah, yes, lovely idea. Let's have another question. Just before I come back to you, sir, because you already had one. Is that yes, sir?
May I just put the other side of the coin, please, to the panel, insofar that we always hear about people who have been wrongly convicted. What about the people who have been wrongly let off? And that's going on all the time. Go and sit in the gallery, the public gallery of any Crown Court, and frequently you will hear more than the jury hears, and you can come to a conclusion, particularly when perhaps you know a little bit about the individuals in the dock, that indeed there are criminals who go free. Let's hear a little bit more about that side of the question.
But if a man is acquitted, or woman, is acquitted, because women have been known to commit crime. Is acquitted, are you suggesting there should be investigations into why? Because this is the point here. If someone is in jail for 5 years for a crime which he or she didn't commit, should you have an investigation? This is the point.
Yeah, that's my point, Sir Robin. You can have an investigation if they are put into jail quite wrongly, but you cannot have an investigation if there is absolutely no machinery for reopening a case if someone is acquitted wrongly.
Right, well, you've made that point very forcibly, and that, as you say, is the other side of the coin. Thank you very much indeed, and then we end the programme. In next week's Question Time, we have Susan Crosland, who is a writer and a journalist, and 3 interesting backbench MPs. The Right Honourable Michael Haseldine MP, the Right Honourable Dr. David Owen MP, and Dennis Skinner MP. There you are, Tarzan, Dr. Death and the Beast of Balso. If that doesn't turn you on, nothing will. That's next Thursday's Question Time, 10 p.m, BBC One. Good night and sleep well.